All right, so let's get started really quick. Welcome everybody to the Haunted Hacker Podcast, episode 24, I believe. It just time keeps moving. Tonight we have Kim Kennedy online with us live. Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me? Okay.
Absolutely. Great.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We appreciate you being here. It's pretty laid back. We have a lot of fun, talk about world events and stuff and computer hacking and cybersecurity and all that good stuff. So let's go over a little bit of housekeeping before we get started and a quick shot at the news. Housekeeping, I'm going to go ahead and switch over the chat to where it'll only come to me during the session. So if you have questions, put it in the chat box, it'll come to me. We had a couple people record tonight because my connection is crap, it seems like, for the past couple weeks. So our last episode that we had, I was supposed to upload it to H4unt3d, and it was only 20 minutes long because of a outage that put us offline. So hopefully having a couple people record will help soften that blow a little bit. So news, really the only thing that stands out today in the news was that the Fin 7 threat actor, Fadir Halader, got arrested and is doing a 10-year prison sentence. He was part of the Fin 7 group. So they're responsible for compromising thousands of credit cards, stealing a bunch of money. Really prolific, but they were shut down according to the news. Anyways, so let's get started. Like I said, it's really laid back. Feel free to ask questions to people in the chat during the conversation, and I'll make sure it gets to Kim. I believe Ryan is online with us as well. Ryan, are you still there? His video is not working very well. My audio is kind of lagging, so we'll have to play this by ear. Anyway, so Kim, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey through cybersecurity and your career.
So I'm actually relatively new to the cybersecurity field. I've been in kind of IT and more on a different side of things. I changed careers a few years ago. One of the reasons that kind of brought me into cyber, besides I tend to hang out with programmers, people in security, and just over the years, I've always been kind of a point person for smaller businesses. And then I went into an IT shop. I was actually in accounting. I ended up helping out and taking over their asset management renewals and kind of streamlining that for them. And then I wanted more. And so I kind of switched over. I know that a lot of the topics today and a lot of podcasts tend to be around like, how do you break into cybersecurity? And it's a very interesting and hard thing to do if you don't have a military background and some other things. And even then, it's kind of interesting. And so over the years, my last job was at Attack IQ, and they've done an amazing thing by opening up an Attack IQ Academy that kind of helps give people all kind of a better insight to some of these things on the more of the purple teaming, we're at a time where we kind of need everybody to know a little bit about everything, but you definitely have a niche for that. So currently I am looking for work, but I also am kind of starting some side projects that aren't cybersecurity related as well. I want to work for a place that I believe in. I believed in Attack IQ, and I have a love for them and always will, but I'm on to the next chapter and kind of see where things lead.
And that's a good position to be in, actually. I've spent a couple of years in that position, kind of floating around and doing some public speaking and stuff. So what was your life like before you decided to make that turn into cybersecurity? I mean, what kind of things were you doing, like as career-wise, or was it just, fill me in about it. Tell me about it.
So I actually was doing accounting and HR. I started off with doing, back when I was 18, I realized I did not want to have a, minimum wage job for the rest of my life. I knew when I was 50, I did not want to stand on my feet. I think most of us kind of agree with that. And so I did whatever it took. I've had multiple jobs. I've worked pretty much every type of job I can think of. But with accounting, it's a wonderful thing, right? So it's easy in the fact of like A plus B equals C.
Mhm.
Yay. That's not real life in most jobs. The downside to that is I get bored very quickly. So usually, I'd go in and, figure out people's, business models. And the one thing that's great about accounting that is interesting is you can take that model and go to a different company. You need to learn it inside and out to really understand, hey, am I missing billing? Or is there any way we can be more efficient? Is there a better way to handle these things? And so with that being said, I used to get bored. So I am OSHA 30 certified. I used to work in construction a lot. I speak Spanish now.
Wow.
I inkjet press. I drive truck. Like I can drive it. I almost got my CDL, but I didn't. Just because I'm like, hey, I did all of that. Like now what? So. And I've worked for very large corporations that we did the accounting for 5 different factories, and so uh, it's interesting because you get to learn so much about how things are run. Most people in accounting, I don't think, go to that extent. They just kind of like, oh, we'll do an invoice here and there. And I'm like, no, I need to know it. And by doing so, that's why I've ended up with all these extra skills. So when my last job before I took the career change was at the MSP, where I worked for several years. Had they been able to take in a lower entry level, I would have been happy to have taken that, but they weren't at that spot. So I went on into their asset management, kind of like I said, kind of helped with getting that like streamlined a little bit better. I just love the people that I work with when it comes to trying to get the general public and raise awareness. Part of it is I'm a learner, but I love to teach. And so as part of what I do, before I switched over, I kind of started realizing that about myself. And so I wanted to get more visibility into like the cybersecurity community. There's a huge need for people, although I don't think it's as big as we say it is. I think there just needs to be a potentially a different outlook of how we hire people in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that I sound like a broken record when I talk about this, but when a company has a mid-level person and they move on, instead of going out to the internet and putting out a job requirement for a mid-level analyst, why don't these companies actually open up some true entry level positions? Not entry level that requires 5 years experience, but like true entry level. Those are very hard
Yep.
to come by. And I know that frustration. I can't count how many times I've been told either you're overqualified or most people just won't touch me at all. So at least you have that background where you can walk into a business and apply and feel somewhat confident. I have to kind of, it feels awkward walking into a place and asking for a job because I'm waiting for them to pull up my rap sheet. But so so yeah, I mean, there's similarities there, right? So before I got into security, I've done a lot of stuff. I was in the military. I've been a professional boxer. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think that's helped in a way because really cybersecurity is not like a blinders on type of career or environment. You have to be able to put on different hats and move to different positions and be able to pick up where you left off or where that other person left off. And people who don't have the background that we have, like the various jobs and that big portfolio, it's hard for them to navigate from one position to the next within a company, like responsibility wise, because they've got blinders on. And that's what I tell people coming in the industry is if you want to do defense, if you want to do cybersecurity, learn offense too. And I think that's part of the thing that we fail at as an industry is teaching people. So you hit a good point about becoming a teacher. I don't think I could ever be like a true teacher. I think I could probably do like video teachings or whatever, but no, teaching's not my thing.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be a true teacher in the sense of like 9 to 5, like at a high school, by no means.
Mhm.
I'd be the teacher that'd be like, sit down, like, we'll figure this out, but I need you to at least pay attention.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
um,
I just remember being a kid in class and what I did to the teachers. There's no way that I could endure that as an adult. There's just no way.
I also give those teachers a hell of a commencement because
Hmm.
I think they knew and saw those things in us that made us stand out, right? So, one of my absolute worst teachers, and I say worst, but like hardest teachers, she was, my English high school teacher. Everybody hated this woman. I did too. I would question her like,
Hmm.
well, if you're telling me to do this, then if this is my opinion, you can't tell me it's wrong, like very stubborn. But she also was one of those people that made the biggest impact. I knew she had she really wanted us to understand so that we could get ahead. It wasn't, she was being mean. This is just what it is. She just wanted us to pay attention. And I think she did recognize that, in me, and I'm sure your teachers in you, like, but again, yeah, do I want to do that? No.
No, no. And it requires everybody, right? So, when I look back at the teachers I had, my biggest thing was wanting to argue, wanting to debate, right? So if someone told me this was this, I want to know why this was that. Show me
Yep,
proof. Don't give me a theory, show me proof. And I think that's why I like cybersecurity so much, because I can find that proof. If I think there's a vulnerability, I can go out and find it. And it's that confirmation that I needed. Frenchie made a good point too. Cybersecurity is just like boxing, right? So you have to have the offensive, defensive strategy, and all that good stuff. So, what made you make the decision to go to cyber out of all of the industries? Why cybersecurity? And have you thought about maybe going into, I don't know, maybe like supply chain auditing, because that's going to be huge. What happened with SolarWinds was phenomenal for security auditors and supply chain auditors, because that opens up a whole nother career path for us. So
it
what
does.
so what made your decision to go into cybersecurity?
So I guess the biggest thing for me is that, like I said, I had a lot of friends that were doing programming, and on the security side. One, I just think it's necessary. Working with a lot of small businesses, which I typically have worked with small businesses or startups. I just saw that the lack of knowledge in the general public for a business, they're like, I'm not important, they're not going to hack me, kind of thing, is so huge. And
Mm-hmm.
so actually when I worked at the MSP, I David Levine, who was my boss, who's an amazing person. I mean, he was very upfront. Like, they were very on top of things. We have to do this because we're protecting all of these people that don't know or don't really have a huge chance. And so, like that educational part of getting that out was really, really important to me. I saw the need out there. I also saw how, even just talking with people on asset renewals, how little they understood. Like, oh, well, if you don't pay this, like you lose your website. If you lose your website, you lose your clientele. Like you kind of just have to take baby steps. And
Right.
I just saw this huge need. And I mean, just talking to, just general public, it just baffles my mind. As far as the auditing, I thought that originally I probably should have gone into a tax auditing background, because the thing that I love the most about accounting, and again, I kind of got into accounting after I just decided I'm not going to stand on my feet at a restaurant or whatever. Not that you can't make good money, but again, when I'm 50, not what I want to do. Um, and it it's that learning and finding those gaps, right? So that's where I love, like, I kind of strive at finding those things in those feedback loops, but it also can be very frustrating when no one listens, right? So, I mean, as you know, as a pen tester, I've heard this over and over again. Pen testers go in year after year, And it's the same thing they said last year. And so it's just frustrating because you're like, I'm trying to help you. How can I make this easier? So yes, I think that's something that might be in my future. I'm still trying to figure out, there are so many options, but there's also, I don't believe in training or paying for something. I know you're a big guy on the certs. Like, well, I don't need another if it doesn't absolutely apply. And yes, I do believe that being well-rounded is awesome. I'm still in those figuring out moments of like how far I want, like which path am I going in? How is it going to go with that? So, but I love my big thing is I love being able to like hunt something down and then say, okay, I found it. How do we fix this? And then how do we go forward so it doesn't happen again?
And that would fall right into place with like threat hunting, right? I think that you would be like fantastic at threat hunting. Some of the stuff the reason why I do what I do is because I like for someone to tell me that, oh, well, you can't hurt our network and you can't get into this, you can't get into that, because then I spend all my time getting into it. I think my last job, they touted that they had great, internal security, and then I ran a couple manual scans, and there was tons of stuff that was like wide open. So it's kind of a challenge, right? Like I like that challenge. I like someone to tell me that it can't be done. You did have some really great coworkers over at Attack IQ. They posted something about, I posted something about SIGINT, and then two of the guys from Attack IQ, I guess ex-military, commented on it, and I was like, that's interesting. So yeah, I mean, we all have like really diverse backgrounds, but what I think is like the most important, right, is we have like all these people that come into the podcast, right, into the Discord for the Haunted Hacker, and like I told you before, their ages from like 11 years old till 60, right? I mean, just complete variety of people. But I think that's what's great about our industry is you can make a change into this industry. You can make a career change anytime you want. It's not something that, oh, well, I'm too old, too long in the tooth, can't do it. I've seen guys that walked out of the Air Force officers that sat behind a IDS screen as an analyst working underneath me at USGFCom, and they were, full brass. And it's amazing to see that the interest that the world has in cybersecurity now, especially after SolarWinds. But I was just thinking about that today, thinking about people, first getting into the industry, and what would I have done post SolarWinds if I was getting into the industry now? And, working at one of the biggest financial institutions in the US, our supply chain was so massive. And to think about SolarWinds and to think about the fact that, how secure were they during SolarWinds? I hope that they don't have SolarWinds, because if they did, they probably got hit pretty hard. But I think that attack taught us a couple things, right? It taught us that no matter what happens in the geopolitical arena and the political tensions, hackers are still going to be hackers, whether they're nation state or just low one. Exactly. Well, see, as a CT in the military doing RF and SIGINT, we had a saying, and the motto was trust no one and monitor everybody else. So, I mean, that's the mindset we come from. But I think that the supply chain is important. And I think that if anybody's getting into the industry, has asset management background, has some sort of handle on cybersecurity, and has the ones and zeros, like they deal well with numbers, that supply chain really, that career path is going to be huge. I'm sure
Absolutely.
SolarWinds is probably kicking themselves right now, but anyways.
Well, and I think you kind of mentioned something earlier about, like the educational and like the well-roundedness, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's one of the things a lot of people worldwide, we don't have it quite as much anymore for some reason. And I don't, we're talking about the blinders. It's like, this is my job. These are my job mm-hmm. duties. And I've just never been a fan of that. I do believe that some people are better at a certain job, and I don't necessarily agree with the educational system as it stands in the United States. If someone is terrible at math, you don't yes, you need to make them understand math, but you don't need to punish them with math.
Exactly.
Some people will just be, whatever it is, right? Like they're going to kind of go down this, path, which is absolutely fine. But we end up now with people that are too nearsighted, right? So they can't see a little bit outside of their own picture. So they miss things. They only see how it affects themselves. And that's where I do try. I think accounting did really help with that, because I did have to know the whole picture to make sure, like, we're not missing something, either on billing or making sure even a customer, like, hey, why is there, Azure cloud so low this month? If it was high, like, did somebody go in and do something? Is something not working properly? I mean, even to that extent. And I don't think a lot of people have that capability to kind of see outside of their immediate, like you said, like their blinder zone.
So it sounds like
Um,
sort of like a forensics accounting type function when you're going through and looking like at the Azure accounts and trying to figure out the differences and the deltas between what should be there and what's there. So would you consider yourself like
right, absolutely.
blue, red, or purple? If you were to take a stance as a tester, what would you be?
I would none. I would say I actually do think like threat hunting would be kind of I think I would really enjoy that side of things. I like you said, kind of being challenged, and then being able to I can look at, I understand coding to a certain extent, right? Like I can see anomalies pretty easily over the course of things, but I'm not in any of those categories yet. Again, I'm very, very new, and it's very interesting. My role with Attack IQ was really more in the like sales, but kind of more of you know information, just trying to get the name and like be able to educate people, right? So I wanted, because what they are doing, what there is a great need for it. I do really love the product. The people that I apply to, like I'm looking at now, I mean, I look at their background. I want to, like, I on all of my cover letters, and I believe, I want to believe in wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this, and it's, yes, it's idealistic and it's nothing's perfect. I get that. But at least if I believe in a product, I know that I can go in there with the right mindset. I mean, I'd rather be unemployed, and I hate to say that, but I'd rather be unemployed and working on my own thing than work in a product that I don't believe in.
Exactly.
And nothing's perfect, but having that baseline of, you know, not having blinders on,
Mhm.
going into something but believing in it, knowing that there's something out there, that there's an end goal that makes sense. I mean, there's some things that don't make sense, but it may sell. It doesn't matter. Like, to me, it doesn't matter if it's not, if the goal of the company doesn't kind of like have any
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't speak right now. But balance between what I believe in and what they're doing.
Yeah, to me, it's really important to find a company that I believe in what they do. Um, I can honestly tell you that probably about 90% of the companies that I worked for um, didn't have that attribute, right? So that's why they didn't last very long. But I did have one really cool mentor that worked at Verizon, and he's going to be on the show next month, Jim McConnell, and he was the one who built the GSOC, the global SOC for Verizon. Really great guy, and people like him and companies like Verizon and some of the startups I've worked for. They're people. They're people, right? So Jim didn't look at me as analyst. He looked at me as Mike Jones. And I think we've gotten away from a lot of that, to be honest with you, in the industry. I think that pandemic, with the different breaches that have occurred, we've lost track and lost touch of the human element of it. And it's become, so disparate. And part of it's a pandemic too. We all work remotely and kind of isolated. But I haven't seen a whole lot of companies making headway on making that a comfortable situation, making those people that work at home not feel like they work on an island. And that's kind of why we started this podcast, was just to kind of like get information out, and give people that central area where they could go and learn and not feel pressure at work, and you have all the training materials you need and all that stuff. Because I think it's really important. And to get people heading down the right path in security, I think is important too, because there's nothing worse than seeing someone who's been in the industry for 20 something years. And when you talk to them and they wish they had gone into a different position after 20 years, to me, that's just bonkers. Like I couldn't imagine doing anything for 20 years that I didn't absolutely love. Like my track record with time spans is not very good. So, and this is one of those things, right? So the podcast I really enjoy, and I'll be here till the end. But as far as the industry goes, right? Let's look at the US cybersecurity industry as opposed to like the UK. Because I know from being over in the UK, some of the companies that I saw over there were fantastic. Like, I don't, before I went over to the UK the very first time, people told me, oh, you know, the people in the UK are very cold. It's a very gloomy place. It's just not great. And I get over there and I thought, which UK were they talking about? Because this is fantastic. People were excited about cybersecurity, and people were involved, and there was conferences everywhere. And I get back to the States, and it's like what I tell people in the UK is that the States is so oversaturated. The cybersecurity industry is so oversaturated with people who think they're subject matter experts, which you'll never hear me say I'm an SME. And then you have other people who just do it for a paycheck. There's no passion in it. So I don't know if you've encountered any of that, but I've definitely seen it since I've gotten back to the States. There's not a lot of passion as far as people's careers and industry go here.
Well, I think you're correct. I think in a lot of other countries, I see initiatives being taken on by the government with a lot more veracity than I do here in the United States. I do see with the United States, I do tend to see people that they're like, I'm doing this to get into it for the money. It's well, I can't get money. Well, but again, we also have this mentality, you graduate, college, you jump in, like these kids are getting out and they're like, I want $85,000 a year because I have, well, that's just not life. And like somebody should have told them like, you have to earn it, I changed careers. I'm at the bottom again. I'm not, like I get it, but I arranged my life to make sure that that was part of how I could progress without having to get out of what I'm doing now in order to progress forward. I knew I wasn't going to start off at 100K, but it's not about the money. Again, it's not about, it is and it's not, right? Like I want to be able to live a nice life. I want to be able to, but I want to, again, believe in what I do. And I don't think we have a lot of people that they're not taught that. They're like, we get out of college, how many people, and this is one thing that does drive me crazy about like the job search. How many people have a degree in what they originally had? Not many. And, but yet it's required to be in this particular field. And the thing is like, have a common sense test of like, this is what we do. Can you figure out this common sense stuff? But, yes, okay. I understand that college is wonderful for making sure that you can follow through in projects and different things. But again, I see that as our government isn't as proactive as I think it should be on a lot of levels when it comes to these things.
They're very proactive when it comes to prosecution and cyber law, but as far as like building programs and teaching the youth and getting cyber in all the primary schools, I think we failed.
Big one.
Hardcore. Yeah, big zero on that one.
If I could have someone do something as like, it should be in grade school. Toddlers are on tablets and iPhones and, it's insane. And yet it is not, yes, I don't know why that's not a thing. Like, I can't get it. But again, I think our educational system in general, and even in other, like, it's not just the US, I get that. But we just really need to have some people just really kind of get down to brass tacks and say, okay, this is starting at elementary school,
right,
at pre-K. How do we get this more like we should have lessons in cybersecurity starting that young.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that has kind of
Yeah,
driven me crazy.
yeah, it cracks me up because they'll dump money into different areas of the government, but then when it comes to cyber, I think they just put together an initiative within the past couple of weeks to bolster the infrastructure, right? To like harden the infrastructure because of SolarWinds. But here's the thing: is that if you would take that money and invest it in training and getting the right people in the right places, that breach probably would not have occurred. But the problem is that when you have people that are so spread thin and they're making that $60,000 a year, it's tough for them. Especially the U.S. mentality, the capitalist mentality of going out and being consumers is very difficult. One, for the pandemic, and two, if your company is paying you peanuts to carry out the defense of their infrastructure, which I think is absurd. But anyways, yeah, so I know
it is
this
very mind-boggling.
It is. And the UK definitely has that program to help teach kids and gives them competitions. They have a thing called the Matrix Challenge, where basically it's a CTF. I haven't seen anything of that level put on by the government other than Hack the Pentagon. And to be honest with you, I've had friends who've been involved in Hack the Pentagon, and I had one that was actually threatened by the military because he had gone outside of scope and found like 1 million vulnerabilities. It was insane. But to me, that whole Hack the Pentagon thing is more of, hey, why don't you check our workforce instead of actually trying to invigorate the community and get things moving and building things. It's more of a, hey, can you check and make sure that we don't have any vulnerabilities, because we don't want to pay an outside group to come in and do it. So they're getting something for free.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a lot of companies.
I think the mindset of companies is have a big sales team, have a big marketing team. And of course you have to make money, but you have people that are in a field that not everyone wants to be in necessarily and can be in. And that's okay. But the people that want to be there, they can't get in because you have a huge corporation with 3 pen testers and, but you spent millions of dollars on these tools that you're not using. So how do you break that mentality? How do we, and that's another one I know that's always talked about, is how do you get upper management to see the importance? I mentioned to you in the chat earlier, I'm starting on a side project for something in retail. And it's been kind of on my mind for a while, but with the current situation, it's perfect timing, right? Take every moment you have and make use of it. So, and so I don't understand, if I'm going to build this, I'm going to start off with the right security tools from the beginning, even if it's as small as a VPN and some encryption. I mean, there's no, to me, and I know it's not an easy answer, but to me, there's no reason you can't do something right from the beginning. But people tend to go, okay, we're going to just throw money at it and we're not going to worry about that till it's a problem. We're not going to pay the fine until we get hit. Yep. But kind of going back to our government, and yes, we're good at, penalizing and catching people. But you said Fin7, they got what, 10 years? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're telling me somebody who is a heroin dealer or a murderer gets life, but these people affected how many people, stole their lives, took their money. This shouldn't, 10 years is a slap on the wrist for this. That's nothing. This is not teaching. This is teaching people in what I see is that you get more trouble. And I'm not saying go deal heroin by any means, but if somebody's buying heroin, they're doing it because they want it, and somebody is selling it because there's a supply and demand, right? So again, obviously supply and demand on wanting users' credentials and their bank accounts and do it. But that person who's buying it wanted it. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that's kind of where it ends. Yes, it affects their family and whatever, but this is affecting 350 million people and they get 10 years.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand the correlation between the punishment. And so Yeah, I mean, the guy's going to lose 10 years, but
Yeah,
what if somebody who lost their entire life savings? I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't just apply to cybersecurity, like all these other, people that have stolen people's monies.
yeah. The punishment and the law is something that I've been tangling with for probably about 3 years now. Looking at some of the sentences were handed down. Like us take one of my friends, for instance, he got, I think it was 6 years for compromising a school computer. He was in prison with a guy that got 2 years for manslaughter. So you have a kid, a young kid who hacked into a school system and got 6 years, and you have someone who killed somebody and got 2 years. You know, the way that they sum up sentencing and punishment for cybercrime, first of all, I think is unethical because it's a global crime. It's not just a Texas, Virginia, Boston crime. It's a federal crime, but it's also a global crime, right? So in the military, when we have someone that we bring in to prosecute, right, from an adversarial role, when they come in, we're sentencing them in a military tribunal, right? So that's like a pretty much a higher court. And I think with hacking needs to be a global court, right? We have Interpol. There's no reason why we can't have Interpol Cyber and go that route, to make it equal across the board. Because what hackers do is they'll look at the countries that have extradition, as well as the countries that have a history of really bad prosecution for cybercrime, and they'll pick those countries to launch from or to be in. And it kind of kills the whole idea of let's prosecute. Like right now, if you look at the FBI's most wanted list, you're going to see most of APT1 and most of APT28, both China and Russia. And those people on that list will never be apprehended, never. And we spend our money, and the Department of Justice spends their money chasing those people and putting up that, taking the time and putting it up on the website, knowing that, first of all, none of us know who they are, nor do we care. And they probably will never be apprehended anyways. It's a political move. So there's a lot of shenanigans that goes on with the government, cybersecurity, and really just everything from A to Z. We were talking the last episode, I believe it was, about the power grid. And it's funny when you talked about, starting things from the very beginning and doing it right. One thing that I saw with solar winds, and not only solar winds, but with the hack in Florida and with the power grid, is that we're looking at technology that was built and deployed, infrastructure built way before the internet existed. And so now we're all kind of screwed because those systems were not meant to interface with the internet very well. And we're seeing the results of that now.
Absolutely.
And really to secure the power grid, they would literally have to yank out all of the infrastructure and start over again. And so there's separate, like little separate disparate grids, but Texas is one of the biggest ones. And working in electric there, it was easy to see that they built that system and that infrastructure on what they had at that time. Problem is when that's built and it works, as long as it works, nobody cares. So time progressed,
Right.
technology progressed, and everybody's still looking ahead going, well, our shit still works. Yeah, but now look at the situation we're at now. And I think globally,
Yeah.
that's where we're all at, because as humans, we have an issue of not looking forward and looking at right now. It seems like the generations, below, not below, but the younger generations now, um, that instant gratification, that $80,000 salary straight out of high school is going to haunt everything we do in cybersecurity, because that same mentality they're going to bring into cybersecurity and that infrastructure that needs to be revamped. If it doesn't give them a payoff immediately, they probably won't jump into it. So there's a lot of hurdles. One question Ryan had for you was, when you decided to get into cybersecurity, was there a confidence issue, like you starting off from the bottom again and trying to, and visualize your road to the top? Was that very difficult to get into a new industry and, from scratch?
Absolutely. I do have I do have family in cybersecurity, but at the same time, I just would go to the conferences,
Mhm.
walk around and check out the vendors and see if I liked, who I liked, what I liked, and where they were located, and just try to find out more. So in a way, as far as yeah, of course it's scary. You're trying something new every time you change a job. Of course it's scary, but that also for me is kind of invigorating. I really like that. Like you kind of mentioned the challenge of it, right? So, and as far as the confidence, I knew that if I'm given a chance, I can learn it. It's not a matter of that. So it's more of the fact of how getting into it, right? Like having to profess, this is who I am in interviews over and over. That's more of like, like I got to do this again. But it's not, it's very scary. And, as far as confidence goes, but I can't let the confidence, because I know that if I'm given a chance, if somebody shows me something, then I can usually pick it up pretty well. And knowing that about myself, I don't lose that confidence, because it's just something that is part of me. It is that challenge, right? So, and I want to do well at those things. COVID's definitely been probably the worst year for me this past couple of years, and things didn't work out right. And yeah, that drops my confidence a ton. But at the same time, sometimes it's okay to take a step back, and you just have to go move forward. And Ryan has been one of the best like supporters. Him and Fee, just like, I absolutely cannot say enough about him. I want to see him, just flourish, as well as everybody else in my group. And I do want to build an empire. He just kind of brought that up, but like, yeah, I do want to build an empire, and it's not. It's, instead of it being like an empire in a pyramid, I want it to just be all of us together, helping, and kind of like what you're doing with this podcast is helping each other, giving each other resources. Jerry Azure from Simply Cyber has been amazing. The work that he does, I just, I love his mindset. And that's one of the reasons that I love cybersecurity. Really, it's the people in it that are in it really believe that there can be something better, right? That we can try to help each other, build each other up. Of course, you'll always have in any industry people that have been in the same position for a million years, and they just, things won't change until they're forced. But so as much as I say, like, we have the people that are coming in with blinders, and they see the 80, like, I need 80,000 and above to start, and then it's, oh, like, that's not my job set. Like, of course, but for as many as of those that there's I would say not quite half, but like probably, just as many, not really, but like Ryan's up there, right? Like people coming in and just trying to do everything they can to kind of figure it out and make this world a little bit safer.
Yeah, and it's really good. I mean, I really like that you point out, what we're doing with the podcast, because that really is what we're doing, as far as, giving a place for people to land and to see the industry from the outside in, before they make that jump. And then once they make that jump, they know they have all of us to back them up. But you're right, and things like the podcast and things like, people who are willing to help and pull you into the industry, they're always there, and they're always supportive. But you hit on something that made a lot of sense, was the fact that not everybody wants to see you succeed, and they'll make things difficult. And unfortunately, there are people in our industry that do that. I've had to experience that firsthand. Uh, but it's not about me. It's not about, what happened, or the difficulties or hurdles. It's all about passion and perseverance, right? So you just don't let those people or those incidents get you down, and you keep moving. Um, and as far as the money goes, one thing I've noticed, and one thing I've learned over my umpteen years, is the fact that money comes and goes. I've had some really great salaries, and I've had some really bad ones, and I've had no salary. A lot of people don't know is that most of my money comes from speaking engagements, and just consulting. Like not a whole lot of companies will take a gamble and hire me full time, because of my background and things that occurred in the past. But just like the industry, it's not stagnant. My career's not stagnant, and just because I did something 10 years ago doesn't mean I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Um, but that's the complexities of dealing with the industry, and people who understand, people who don't understand. But for people coming into the industry and expecting an $80,000 purse, I would say that, once you do an internship, do it for free. Sit there and learn the job, and learn the industry. And if that passion is there, go for that 80 grand. But don't do it. Don't get into the industry simply to make a paycheck. And I know people who do that. And kudos to them, but I just couldn't do it. I have to be in the industry and do something that I believe in completely. And that's one thing. That's one reason I've stuck with this group and with this podcast. So you said Ryan. Ryan's a great guy, right? Most optimistic guy I've ever seen. He's hiding right now. But we got attacked, and I was ready to just say, screw it. I'm doing this to help people out, and people want to attack what we're trying to build. But then I realized that no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be those hurdles. And the thing is, you just don't let them win, and you continue doing what you believe in. And to me, at the end of the day, if my last day on earth is doing this podcast or doing cybersecurity, then I'm happy because I did it. I left the world doing something I enjoy. And not a whole lot of people can say that about what they do in life. I know that,
Absolutely.
I've had family members that really hated their job, and to see them go to work every day and be frustrated. It's just like, why do that? Anyway, so 2021 and
Yep.
getting into the industry.
I lost both of my parents just on a. Oh,
holy cow. Really?
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think we had some lag. Yeah. So what the reason I was bringing that up is that both of them passed relatively early, and they both. My father did have a job that he loved, but what he wanted more than a job that he loved was a retirement that he could enjoy.
Right.
And by that time, my mother had started getting sick. He passed earlier than she did, but the reason I kind of am the way I am is I don't care. My money can't go with me. And
right.
if I have money, I'm donating it when I leave. It's not, money can't bring happiness. And I've had a lot of ups and downs, but watching my parents go through not being able to enjoy, waiting till that last, I'm going to get to this retirement. Not everybody makes it. Like they say, tomorrow's not promised. And you've got to be, like the ups and downs will come. And if I am not the right fit, that's fine. If I don't if it's not working for either of us, I don't want to be there. Like I want to make an impact. I want to be a better person. And if it's not working for either of us, like why are we doing this? Right. So, and I get that. And it doesn't hurt me. I mean, of course it hurts a little bit, to not have a certain, path at certain times or whatever, as life is. But at the same time, like you said, 10 years, 20 years ago, like, hey, I did something. So I learned from that. You can tell I learned from it. And if you want somebody who has no experience or any life, then that's fine. That's your choice. Or, it's, but tomorrow's not promised and we've got to go. Like, I want to do this because I want to be happy. I want to help people. Like that's point blank. That's what it comes down to. So, and it doesn't matter. And I hate to say that even if it's not cybersecurity, in the end, I'm going to be doing something that brings people together, that helps people. And I wanted to, like, I will never leave the cybersecurity community, even if I do nothing except for connect other people that, to make them have a better life.
Yeah, that's key, and that's where the podcast is at. Like, I don't get paid anything for the podcast. This is just something I do because I enjoy it, and I like helping people. I like giving people a place to congregate and kind of share ideas, and it's free. I don't agree with some of the, like, early on. I had thought about doing a pay per like subscription, but yeah, like talk to the guests and stuff like that. And it was not feasible because we want to give back what we received. And that's kind of what we do now. So ideally, in a year from now, where do you see yourself?
Ideally, I will have my retail business up on the side, making me some, money, so that I don't have to worry as much. But and in that, trying to help people as well. I also have another side project that is also kind of in that same space, but it's trying to connect people and kind of build a better way of doing things going forward. As far as on the cybersecurity side, I'm just going to keep trying to get some certs under my belt. And the thing now is to kind of try to narrow it down, right, to a specific type of field. I do like the auditing side of things. I am a people person, and that's one thing that, like, I think accounting didn't hold for me. And if I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I really do. I just want to be able to help bring people together in the best way and help with the educational side of things at the very least. But we'll see what a year, looking forward, there's so many options and possibilities. I hate trying to limit myself
Yeah.
by saying, but at the same time, it's always good to have a goal, right? So
Right.
you have to have a goal, but I have looked into like threat hunting and things like that. And I think that I'd probably be pretty damn well
There's
at
a
it, but baby steps, right? So I don't like to get ahead of myself.
there's a company that you should probably take a look at as far as threat hunting goes. And the only reason why I mention them is because I'm friends with a lady who is management over there. It's called CrowdStrike, and they do a lot of threat hunting, a whole lot. So
Oh yeah.
you may want to take a look at that and see what they have going on. Unbeknownst to you, like this podcast can serve as an interview for a job as well. So once this goes up online, you'll have a foot in the door with a lot of companies, and they can look at this and serve this as your interview for the job. So let's open this up to Ryan says he's never heard of CrowdStrike. Dude, are you living under a rock? CrowdStrike is I hope you're joking. Okay. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions for Kim.
Oh, Ryan, always with the jokes.
Mm-hmm. The
It's
Wookiee.
that guy.
Yeah, it's the resident Wookiee. So if anybody has questions for Kim, go ahead and put it in the chat.
Go.
And Kim, if you have any questions for me or Ryan, go ahead and shoot. I'm trying not to hit this. I have a bad habit of hitting this mic, but this mic totally RIP'd earlier before the podcast. So I'm just hoping it hangs on. Anyways.
Oh no.
Yeah, it completely fell apart. Like during the pre-podcast, the microphone actually fell off. But we're working on it. Little technical difficulties. It's one of those things that you deal with when you have a free podcast. So anyways, Ryan, anybody, do you have any questions for us, Kim?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their experiences on the on when they got in. I know quite a bit of people, like I said, that I personally know tended to get in after the military, so they had kind of a foot in the door, having that background, in the back. But if anybody's had any like interesting stories from their first times or first couple jobs of how things went, and what was it that made you leave that kind of company? Was it the atmosphere? Was it like lack of education, trying to get better? Any kind of stories like that, especially towards the beginning of their career, like what impressed them, what drove them away from that?
I'll field the question first of all. I was really like surprised about the lack of knowledge in the space with some of the companies when I first got into the industry. And I'd go interview with HR, and I'd interview with the CISO. And there's such, in a lot of companies I interviewed with, there was such a knowledge gap between the analyst level and the CISO. And from my point, from the very beginning of my career in the industry, I always told myself that when I get to be a CISO, I'm not going to be that CISO who knows things from 30 years ago. I want to be on top of everything. I want to keep my hands in the tech and keep moving. I actually had a CISO that I worked for, and this is going to crack you up. I had a CISO that I worked for, and he was on the phone with a potential client and told the client that he had been doing cybersecurity for over 30 years on a commercial level. And I had to stop and think about it. He was on the phone. He was down the table from me in the SOC. And I sat there and I thought about it. And at the time, I put the numbers together and I thought, 30 years. Okay, yeah, that was way before BBS time. DARPA probably hadn't even released the internet yet. So it just caught me off guard. But you run into a lot of those guys that once they leave the tech trenches and they get into middle management, it's like they leave all that tech behind and they leave that passion for that tech behind. And I think that's where we fail as an industry for a lot of companies. And that's why they get breaches, because the people who make the decisions really aren't that technical anymore. And they have a whole team that they rely on. But how many of those CISOs actually listen to their team instead of making their own decisions? And I think that's probably another downfall that we'll probably address later on in a different podcast. But I saw it a lot when I came into the industry as a rookie, was the knowledge gap between management and the techs. That just can't be good for any kind of organization. Ryan, what about you? I don't know if you're.
I think that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that goes back to, I saw kind of what Ryan mentioned about like the gaps and, you know, how many enterprises don't want to take the money to actually do things. And yeah, it's hard to see, like, it's hard to talk to people when they're all their concern, the return on investment. And I get it. I did accounting. But that, like, if you lose your faith in your customers, and granted, yes, most people can come back from it, you know, Home Depot years ago and all these big companies, you know, day after day, people have just kind of accepted it to a certain extent. However, how much is that return on investment for people, like after they get breached? They're like, hey, we're going to give you a free year of this security monitoring service for the next year for free for 350 million people, you know, like,
Yeah.
How much does your insurance liability go up? I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into account. Like, yeah, the return on investment is, you know, trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be able to trust who I bank with isn't going to lose my stuff. Of course, I know things will happen. This is, you know, it's a never ending saga, right? So,
yeah, the return on investment has always been a big battle. Especially when it comes to looking at budget for cybersecurity within a company and trying to get like tools and stuff. Return on investment is huge. But one thing I try to explain to people too when they're talking about return on investment and their budget is the fact that, you know, yeah, there's no big ROI when it comes to security tools, but get breached and tell me how much that return on investment would have saved you. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into the cybersecurity, I guess, conundrum. When it comes to, you know, what should happen, what's actually happening. Damo is wanting to ask a question. Damo, ask the question, put it in text in the chat. I'll answer it. So yeah, like another thing you might want to look at too is that, you know, I love social engineering, and inherently females are the best when it comes to social engineering. I don't know why. I haven't really studied that. But if you take 2 or 3 pen testers and you take a couple of pen testers that have had various positions outside of security, brand new, male or female, it doesn't really matter. But the funny thing is, like, if you walk into a business and try to approach an IT group as a pen tester, and more than likely you'll get the password long before I'll get the password. But that's just how the industry is. And, you know, social engineering is a huge part of what we do. It makes a lot of money. And also the weakest point in any situation is usually the human factor. So we have a couple of people online that really focus on that in the group. Kristen, she's not online tonight, but she focuses a lot on social engineering, as well as a couple other people. but yeah, I mean, that's one route to go within pen testing without having to actually get into the actual like huge ones and zeros, and do that deep dive into tech.
Right.
But
Yeah,
that's
I joke I should be like the physical pen tester because on multiple occasions on different things, I'm just like, well, I guess their physical security is not up to par and they're like security events. And I'm just like, well, I should
yeah,
probably go into this field because it's not too hard. Or, yeah, it's quite interesting to kind of see. People think there's yeah, the physical aspect. I actually got brunch from a girlfriend of mine that had moved to San Diego with military, and she had just gone in,
mm-hmm.
and she was like, "Well, you can't get on base," and I was like, "Well, will you buy me brunch if I can get on base?" And I was like, "You mean I can't park on base and wait for you to walk up?" She's like, "No, you have like they'll tell you where to park." So I did, and she bought me lunch, and so and she's like, "I don't know how you did that," and I'm like, don't know. It just happened. Like so,
and it's
um, and yeah, it was just one of those things. But
and it's not a sexist thing, right? Like I know some people are probably like cringing right now, going, "Oh my God, he's mentioning females in pen testing and how they're good at social engineering." But to be honest with you, when you look at the numbers, it's factual. Um, when you walk up to an IT manager, an average IT manager, and if I walk up to him, ask for an IP address or a password, he'll pass me over and give it to somebody else really quick. It's all about conversation and being able to appeal to people, and I just social engineering has always been one of those things that is a key to any kingdom. Um, let's see.
oh,
Go ahead.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. I think. No, I was just agreeing with you. It's, I mean, women in general, historically and through evolution we've had a lot different roles, right? So
Mhm.
men, their brains just kind of function a little bit different. And I think it was on one of your podcasts, I'm trying to think if it was with Colin or somebody, but you're talking about how um, it's not a good or versus bad. It's we
Right.
need both. And I don't understand, like if my and it doesn't matter if I mean I am an amazing cleaner. I love organization, I love cleaning. That's also why I like accounting and things
Mhm.
like that. Like auditing would be, that's why I do like things like that, because I like bringing order to things and being able to see the end result, right? But one of the things is that just because I'm good at it, there's other things I'm not. So
Mhm.
that's where, I mean, we have to learn to complement each other instead of tear each other down. It's not
Yeah,
a he versus she, or, it's how can we make my positive and your positives work together so that we have a stronger team.
exactly. And one of the things I wanted to mention too is, when I say that you need male and female on any pen test team or any cybersecurity team, um, I know that sounds really sexist and just really bad, but over the past 20 years and looking at and sitting next to guys and sitting next to females, pen testing and doing cybersecurity, I've realized one thing, and that's men are very ones and zeros, very data driven, and females are more, let's look at the whole picture and let's take a step back. And before there were a lot of women in the industry and it was just us men, we were making some really piss poor decisions because we didn't have that other let's step back and take a look and look at the bigger picture mentality. So yeah, and I think especially in the US, we've gotten so politically correct that you can't say anything without some group or some state or some person being offended. And I've gotten to the point where I speak the way I want to speak. And if they take offense to it, I apologize, but it is who I am. And I'm not gonna pull punches. And Ryan says that offends him. Well, Ryan, I hate to tell you, but oh well. I'll send you some scissors so you can cut your hair and cry like the rest of them. No, but seriously, the the whole idea of uh, people not embracing the fact that it's a female and male driven industry instead of just a male driven industry, I think that needs to take place. I know one CEO from the UK, and she is absolutely amazing and works for Sapphire. Well, she runs Sapphire, and she's probably one of the sharpest. Just leave the beard out of it. Yeah. Anyways, so anybody else have any questions for Kim? Because I could ramble all night long. Sausage fest.
I
Yeah.
don't know, but these comments are cracking me up.
Oh no. I wish that I could take the comments and add them to the actual video for the podcast when we upload it and play it to the rest of the internet. It's some pretty funny conversation that goes on. But that's one thing I like about this group too, is that
I think that's also why I love that this field is because everybody is so honest. I mean, like I know, like I respect everyone's, opinions. If you want me to call you something, that's fine, but you have to understand that maybe it's just not going to pop out the first time, but it's about respect. I'm totally down to respect anybody, but at the same time, like I can't not laugh at this stuff. It's just not, I mean, we've got to have fun,
Exactly. Let's see. Pen testing, in my opinion, is the same as the rest of the industry. Diversity. PT needs people that can help adapt to any scenario that requires all types. So, Steve, the reason, okay, so when you look at pen testing, right, and red teaming, a lot of that function originated from the infrastructure and the structure of the military. That's where he came up with red teaming. That's the type of structure. And then when you look at commercial, so building that diversity into that group can be difficult because those groups move so fast as far as people coming in and coming out. And it's you and I both know, Steve, that pen testing is kind of like I guess it's a high stress situation because you're given a limited amount of time, a limited window with little amount of knowledge to grab everything you can. So yeah, it takes a little bit. PT needs people that can help adapt to any scenario. And the reason why that's true, and the way that I look at it, being that pen testing is kind of orchestrated from military structure, that adversity and be able to think on the move is something that they train us for in the military, is thinking quick and making decisions. Not always the right decisions, but we make decisions. I can tell you.
Well, and I think, and it can be said too, though, like not making decisions is just as, bad. I mean, that tends to happen with these. It's just as bad. The corporations, I don't know about this. We'll wait and see about this. And next thing you're like, why didn't we buy that? Well, we tried to tell you. So not making a decision is just as bad.
Exactly.
And
we're seeing 100%. That, I think, not only in cybersecurity, but politics too. Like the US is suffering horribly from a lack of making a decision. I don't know. I tend to bag a lot on the US. And the only reason why is because I've been to other countries and I've lived in other countries. And when I came back here in October, this place is a disaster. Like I have no idea what this country's been thinking for the past 2 years. I get back, I've been gone for 2 years. I get back and it's a completely different world. Like I'm just shocked.
Yeah, it's justified though. It's very justified. You and I both know the shit posture that this country is in, and yeah, it kills me because I've so many situations where they throw money, like we've talked about, they throw money at appliances and all of these like voodoo rituals that are bullshit and not good sound practices. They won't listen to the people that know. And it's like, oh, well, this little shiny thing here, this is what we need. Yeah, no, bro, no, that's not what you need.
Let me tell you a story about. Listen. let me tell you a story about shiny little boxes, and this will put things into perspective. So I was working for a large financial.
Yes, 100%.
I was working for a large financial in the U.S. and I had a company called Lockheed Martin come in. DoD contractor, government contractor, financial institution, they own pretty much everything. They come in, they tell me, you're having a problem with APTs. We have a solution for you. This is called the APT in a box. If you put this box in your network, it will stop any APT attack. And I took a step back and I said, okay, well, what's in the box? Well, we can't tell you that because it's proprietary. And I said, well, guess what? Your shit's not going on my network because it's proprietary. So let's talk about what's under the hood. And I said, last time I checked, when people compromise a network, they don't look for a device and say, oh yeah, check it in, we're an APT, direct us to the box we need to go to. Because that's basically what they were, advertising, was that you put our box in line in your network and we'll stop every APT attack in your network. And I showed them the front door and that was it. And my boss was like, you're not going to listen to him? I said, dude, a box is going to solve